I'm Aaron Paul.
I'm Xavier Wiggins.
And this is the Power of Sport podcast. So, Dean Morgan from Social Injustice on the way. But first up, Zav has been looking at what's going on around the country. Zav, what's happening?
Thanks, Aaron. So each week, we're going to be looking at all the main news stories in and around the sport for good sector. And this week, we kick off with a great bit of news coming out of Stockport. So one club, one community, Stockport Sports Village is set for a major new chapter, and the community trust at Stockport is right at the heart of it. This week, Stockport have taken a big step in reinforcing what it means to be a community club. Plans have been confirmed for the next major phase of development at Stockport Sports Village, with Stockport County Football Club taking over operations from April this year, and with Stockport Community Trust right at the centre of what comes next. The move brings together the club, the council and Life Leisure around a shared vision, making Stockport Sports Village a long-term hub for football, education and community activity. The site will become home to the club's academy, women's teams and crucially football education programme and Stockport Town FC, while grassroots sport continues and expands. But crucially, this isn't just about elite pathways. Through the Community Trust, the club will significantly grow programmes focused on physical activity, well-being, education and social connection, ensuring the benefits of investment reach right across the borough. It's a clear statement of intent, reinforcing Stockport County's one club, one community ethos, where sporting ambition and social impact move forward together. Stockport Sports Village remains a community asset, and this next chapter puts community sport and opportunity firmly at its heart. Staying in the Northwest, if you work in sport for good, the Fair Game Conference is where the sector shows up, taking place 24th, 25th of March in Manchester at the brilliant National Football Museum. It is the UK's leading gathering on fairness, governance and social impact in football. Tickets are £50 per day, but look out because day one is already close to selling out, so do get in there quickly. Across 2 packed days, the conference launches major new reports on ownership transparency, football's social impact and fairer financial distribution, alongside hard-hitting panels on Hillsborough's legacy, sports washing, gambling and the future football regulator. With 15 interactive workshops focused on real problem solving, this is Football for Good in action. It closes with Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham underlining the political momentum behind the change. Places are limited, so go to fairgameuk.org and book your place. And up next, some of the biggest names in British sport are backing a new government campaign using sport to tackle male loneliness. Rugby legend Johnny Wilkinson, England cricketer Jacob Bethel, and dart stars Luke Humphreys and Luke Littler are supporting Team Up, which is a week-long initiative highlighting how sport can help boys and young men find connection and community. The campaign responds to new figures showing 1 in 4 boys and young men feel lonely at least some of the time. Backed by organisations including the Premier League, EFL, ECB, LTA, Rugby League, Park Run and Movember, Team Up showcases local club activity across the country, from mental health match day support to education, mentoring and grassroots programmes. The message is simple: sport creates belonging, and local clubs can be powerful places to tackle isolation and improve well-being. And it's not just male isolation in the headlines this week. In community sports news, Brown Girl Sport marked its 3rd anniversary with a celebration at Stamford Bridge, highlighting how the platform has cut through isolation for South Asian women and girls in sport and created a space for connection and representation. A new supporters club for women of colour and an ambassador programme were announced as part of the ongoing effort to make sport more inclusive and welcoming. And in rugby, Northampton Saints Foundation has just published its 2024-2025 Impact and Social Value Report, showing the charity generated nearly £3.9 million in social value through programmes in education, employability and social inclusion. The report highlights activity in over 58 education settings, more than 37,000 hours of community engagement and support for nearly 7,000 participants, underlining how sport and rugby values are being used to improve lives and tackle issues like isolation and well-being. And finally this week, if you have news from the Sport for Good sector that you'd like to share with other professionals and people around the world of Sport for Good, please do let us have them at news@sportlocalaction.org. That could be anything from impact reports being released to people moving around, new jobs, new roles, new programs. We're going to be covering a lot of our Sport Impact Hub, which is going to be a database of all Sport for Good programs. But please keep the news coming. Send it to news@sportlocalaction.org and we'll try and cover it and get it out on the weekly Power of Sport pod. Thanks for listening to this first news roundup and look forward to next week.
Zav, thanks for that. Right, up next, we have our special guest. This man is an absolute inspiration, competing in kickboxing at the very highest level, having spent a lot of time in prison when he was younger. Dean Morgan now runs Social Injustice. He helps out with the AFC Wimbledon Foundation and is key in the Morden Little League and Old Ruts Youth Football. He's also an advisor to Merton Council in terms of sport and for the London Borough of Sport. What a guy. Dean Morgan with us. Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Power of Sport podcast with me, Aaron Paul. Great to be alongside you this week for our inaugural episode, and we've got a very, very special guest on with us. Dean Morgan is the founder of Social Injustice Limited, an organisation using sport as a tool to tackle inequality, exclusion, and social injustice. A former elite kickboxer in his day who competed at the highest level, Dean's own life journey is colourful and has shaped both his outlook and his work. Here to tell his story alongside myself and Xavier Wiggins is the man himself, Dean Morgan. How are you, pal?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No, great.
Pleasure.
Great to speak to you. I mean, look, the floor is pretty much yours. For people who are listening who don't know you, who is Dean Morgan? What shaped you growing up and what makes you tick?
Sport makes me tick. Sport definitely makes me tick. And if it wasn't for sport, nothing had happened. You know, it's just the power of sport. I've seen firsthand how the power of sport is. So Dean Morgan in a nutshell, crazy Dean. That's what I've been called. Little bit crazy. Dino from Don is a name that I've been known by because I'm from Doncaster originally. Love combat sports, rugby, football, all sports. You know, the power of sports is immense, and I've just been around sports my whole life. So I love it.
Dean, tell us your story, because again, I use the word colourful to define your past, your background, and I mean the road to where you are right now. It's never straight, is it? It's always a bendy, windy trajectory. Give us yours.
Right. So where do I start? So I was very good at sport when I was younger. I felt I was very good at sport: football, rugby, kickboxing, boxing, taekwondo. I were enjoying it all, but then I went a little bit off the rails when I was at school. Ended up getting kicked out of school, suspended a few times, and then once I got blamed for something I didn't do. You know, with that stage, you know, you start doing things all the time, you're going to get blamed for it. So I got blamed for something, ended up lashing out a little bit, kicked out of school. So I was told that no school would accept me. So I ended up having to have a teacher come into my house twice a week. So I was schooled at home for the last part of my year. And then I got the chance to go and work in Germany. I thought I just need to get away. So I went over to Eastern Germany, spent a lot of time over there in Chemnitz, Leipzig, Dresden. I got put in hospital in Dresden. I was giving it the old 2 world wars, 1 World Cup. You know, as a cheeky little 16-year-old, I probably shouldn't have been doing that in Dresden. So, yeah, I got put in hospital there. I had a bit of time over there, and then I come back to the UK. So I'd seen things different because obviously the Berlin Wall come down in 1989, and then we were over there in the early 90s. I was there for Euro 96, watched that there. So that was enjoyable. And then I've come back to England, back to Yorkshire, Doncaster. And then I just had a different way of looking at life. So I took more chances on things. I was trying to build my sports up and working wise. I'm a plasterer by trade, which I no longer do. And then I ended up getting into trouble because I ended up beating a man up that had been beating a woman up. But I went a little bit too overboard with it, you know. I won't go into the details, but I ended up in a young offenders institute. And so I'm not a thief. He put me with all these criminals. I'm going to end up possibly becoming a criminal. So that way, in the newspapers, and the judge called it an act of chivalry. He said, look, I understand what you've done. It could be chivalrous behavior, you know, but you've broken the law. And that way, then I got put in a young offenders.
How old were you?
Criminals. 18.
So
18.
So you don't go to a man's prison. You get put in a young offenders institute.
Oh no! I went to a man's prison afterwards. This is going to sound a bit stupid, really, but compared to young offenders, man's prison's easy. The young offenders, it's ruthless because too much testosterone flying around. You know, it's just a little bit more violent in the young offenders. So I ended up spending time in there, got released from there, and then obviously I'd had that tag then. I'd been in prison. And then so I started mixing up with more criminals. And obviously because I wasn't involved in thefts and robbing, you know, but my first 5 days, even though I was really good at fighting and combat sports, my first 5 days, I was bullied. It were ruthless, it really bad. And then one day, somebody come up to me that knew me, and they said, Dean, he says, why are you letting people take things off you in here and do this? He says, you're in the papers for smashing a bloke to bits. He says, some of these are just robbing people and that. He says, start standing up for yourself. And then it just got to the stage that were it. I was in the system. There were no, you know, reputation and being involved in it. So yeah, and then
what sort of guidance when you came out? Did you get any guidance from anyone?
No.
Was it like
no.
They looked after you coming out? No.
I just come out and then back in again. But obviously, being involved around drugs, you know, that's something I was never involved in. And then obviously you get involved in drugs, and then I couldn't do sport because I'd got that label, violence and drugs. And then so the next option was back into prison again, running drugs around, drug dealing. I got heavily involved in drug dealing, in the heroin business. I ended up becoming a heroin addict as well. Not just heroin, all sorts of drugs. It just my life got really, really bad. I actually went to prison once where I'm innocent. I should have been there. That is, you know, I should have been there for something else. But I'm actually innocent of what I got put on remand for. And then I can always remember it going to the bail hostel when I got let out. I got let out, but I wasn't allowed to be in Doncaster or South Yorkshire at all. The medic part of my bail conditions, you are not to enter Doncaster or South Yorkshire at all. And then I got
so
out.
How did it all turn around, Dean?
How did it all turn around? My last spell in prison over 20 years ago now. 2000 and so it's 20 years. 2006 the sentence finished, and I released in November or December 2004. And what happened is I was too deep in with the drugs and the criminals by then that I ended up running a police officer over in a drugs bust, trying to escape. So I was involved in a drugs bust because I had heroin with me, and I was the only person that had the supply of it. And now the thing is, when you've got people that are addicted to drugs, people will do anything for it. So I was the only one there, and I turned up to this drug deal. And then an undercover police officer put his head through my car window, and then I've ended up trapping him, driving off with him. Yeah, it was just a little bit crazy. But I was, you know, I was on drugs. I wasn't me. I'm not who I was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago.
How old were you then?
Then I'd have been about 21, 22.
It's funny. I mean, your story is very similar in terms of that to Johnny Vaughan, like the legendary TV radio presenter. At 21, he got done in a drugs bust as well. Um, it was sort of like, I don't know if it was a setup or an ambush or whatever, but basically it was like a service station or something on a motorway, and he just realized like it was done. Like he goes like, I just knew I was done, and I don't know, for him, I think he talks about how prison was it's an eye-opening experience, and this is so random, but I love how it sort of like just meanders off. He went to prison, and he goes, I used to listen to the shipping forecast on Radio 4, and I used to sit in my cell dead of night listening to shipping forecast, 5 a.m, whatever it is, and he used to think about all these boats in the sea and where they're going and what they're taking, and that kind of just like it just carried you through a bit. I don't know. I mean, well,
that's just a bit mad that you say that when because you think of crazy stuff when I actually studied about canals. I was that bored on my last stretch in there. One day I just thought that canals are a man-made waterway. Somebody dug them, so I thought, I'm going to study. Somebody actually dug them up and made it. So that's when you had about Johnny Vaughan with like, look at shipping containers and where they're going. Your mind, you can just go off on random stuff, and you've just got to find a focus and a purpose. So what happened for me, like I say, it was just a bit freaky, and how I've been positive to help it all turn around. It's it's the people around you, your support networks and stuff.
So take me back to I mean, the last time you went into prison. This was for this incident that you mentioned, where you're driving off and you've got the copper's head through the window, whatever it is. How long do you get?
I got 3 years 9 months.
3 years 9, and you did what, half of that, I presume?
Yes, half of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have got a lot longer if he'd been in uniform, and if they'd have caught me with drugs at the time. So
at what point
managed to get away?
Sorry, at what point? Sorry for interrupting. At what point does that sort of switch flick, and you go, right, it's time to sort my shit out? I need to sort my shit out.
My brother were a professional rugby player, rugby league. So my brother were a professional rugby league player, doing really well at the time. He were doing really well with it. Actually, Gary Hetherington, the guy who's involved with London Broncos now, before he went from Sheffield Eagles to Leeds Rhinos, he tried to sign my brother, and my brother turned him down because he just wanted to be at Doncaster and be the top try scorer. So he was passionate about his hometown. And then I just got sick of people saying to me, used to be good. I'd be walking around in prison and be like, I broke my foot kicking a cell. Like, to be honest with you, prison wasn't, it got to the stage, it was all right for me because I used to brew hooch. I'd have people smuggling drugs in. I'm not, people involved in that side of it. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I thought my life was over and I was branded this criminal, what I wanted to do, and I've told loads of people, no word of lie, when I got out of prison on my last sentence, I was going to come out and be a drug dealer. That's where my life was. That's the only thing I thought that I could do. So I broke my foot on a cell door, kicking it one day. I was just agitated and built up anger. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and get help through sport. So when I got out, I approached the England kickboxing coach, and he was also a former police officer. And I said to him, I want to get back involved again. I want a chance to represent my country. I've wasted 5 years of my life in and out of prison and on drugs. I'm like, this is not me. I don't want that life. So they give me a chance. And they said, look, Dean, if you train hard and you win your fights, we have to pick you. So then I just went on to auto mode. I just like the inspiration. I had so many people saying he's going to be back in trouble. He's going to be on drugs. And now I had to turn away and get rid of a lot of people out of my life, cut them out of my life that were no good for me. Drugs, parties, and that. I had to get rid of everybody that were involved in that. And I thought, right, I'm just going to train and try. And I can always remember my first fight coming back out of prison. I got beat, but I didn't get beat. I just lost on points. I wasn't sharp enough. I'd have 5 years away from the sport. And to get back involved in it, it gave me that fire in my belly and a bit of desire.
And how far did you go with the kickboxing after that, Dean? What sort of level of competition?
Oh, well, within 11 months, I was ranked top 3 in the country. Within 11 months of being out of prison, top 3 in middleweights, and then I went on to represent England at the world titles. I had a world title fight. I ended up, one of the biggest achievements is there's a legendary fight circuit in the UK. It's not there no more, and it's not. You can Google it or find out about it. It's called the FSKs, and it's freestyle sport karate, and it's a tournament where you used to get the best of the best martial artists and kickboxers, taekwondo, boxers, anybody that does fighting, and it's a tournament that they used to do in Manchester, and I ended up getting second in that, and that was one of the best achievements I've ever had. You know, not to actually win it, but to be in there and get to the finals of that one. That were bigger than anything. It was just more pride. Like, I used to be a drug dealer involved in criminal stuff, and now I'm sport and I'm feeling good, and I'm talking to people about the power of sport and how you can turn your life around with sport. And it just started rolling, and I started going into schools talking about it, and I ended up being invited to the House of Lords in 2008 to receive an award to do it from the Helena Kennedy Foundation. So Baroness Helena Kennedy got me there, and I ended up getting some coaching qualifications. It was just a surreal, I couldn't be involved in that old lifestyle anymore. It was just, turning point of it all.
Why kickboxing? Where did that come from? As he said, your brother's a rugby league player. I mean, what I look at it is you're a street fighter, you're a street hustler. And I mean, as you say, you were out there, you're sort of like a bit of like a Robin Hood sort of Batman figure, weren't you? But
well,
why
that's what some people say, yeah.
Yeah, but how do you then channel your energy into something like that?
Well, it's what it was. I like rugby league as well. I love rugby league, and one day I broke my nose. Like, my nose is a little bit funny, and people think it's from kickboxing, and it actually happened in rugby. And I broke my nose in rugby, and I decided, you know what? I'm not going to play rugby no more because there's too many people punching me. At least with kickboxing, I know there's only one person in front of me. So I found my guidance with that one. And so it were a way of, it's the training part of it as well, how you can release that anger and energy. If some people do get a little bit like violent and agitated, and they feel like they need to let off some steam, and there's different ways of doing it. Mine has always been kicking and punching things, but it's got to be done in a safe environment. I don't want to harm anybody at all. And the respect around combat sports is, a lot of people think it's brutal, but when like, even with boxing, when there's people fighting, you don't really want to do anybody harm. You're training to win, but you don't really actually want to do any harm to anybody. It's the respect's there, and it's just a different way. Yeah.
And so, when did social injustice come about? When did you decide that you were going to get your head down and as well as doing the sport yourself, start coaching and mentoring others, and kind of follow on from that and answer in whatever order, but kind of give us a bit of a roundup of kind of what you're involved in now in terms of that sport for good space, and what how you manage to train sport but also get across more on the discipline side and the kind of mentoring side that you've got involved with.
Yeah, it's more I'd say I'd seen I was never going to make loads of money out of kickboxing. I'd missed 5 years of it. I just wanted to prove more to myself and others, and my cousin said to me, it's actually a hard sport, and for little reward financially. So I was never going to make money because it's all about entertainment and selling tickets and stuff. So I started fighting for like opportunities for people, and then started working on all my coaching badges in different sports. And then I stopped for a minute and thought, I can't keep doing this when I got with me and missus, because I didn't want my children to know what dad used to do. I had to wait a lot old until my stepchildren understood, and my son were a little bit older because I didn't want him to know that your dad used to do this, your dad used to do that. But as he's got older now, so what I did is in 2019, I woke up paralyzed in 2019, and I'd got a condition which I only found out a couple of years ago about. I've got spinal stenosis, where it's narrowing of my spine. Now, a lot of that might be from years of plastering, years of kickboxing, bouncing on one leg, flicking up like with kicking. And whilst I was paralyzed, I started looking about funds and money and where there's like a paper trail of money. And I know from when I'm involved in the criminal side and drugs, I know there's money, but it's very blurry. You know, I wanted to know where money were going for sports projects and stuff. And I thought, you know what? People wanted me to be involved in stuff before. And I'd said, no, because I didn't like their angle or where they were going with things. So I spoke with my missus and I said, listen, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to create the social injustice, and I'm going to do it and the fight to create opportunities for people. And it's all to do with money. That's why when I created the brand, Social Injustice Limited, it's all to do with money. And how, if like a young person in prison, it costs around £52,000 to put a young person in prison for a year. If you give small organisations just £5,000 or £6,000, how many people are they going to keep out of prison? Through sport and activities, you know. And it's sport's so powerful for me personally to turn my back on a life of no mistaking. I could have made a lot more money doing my drug style. Yeah, I'd have been in and out of prison all my life. I'd have had good money, prison, good money, prison, good money, prison. The power of sport stopped all that, you know, and that's, to me, that's why I'm trying to create opportunities at every angle for people to be involved in sport. And sorry, what the other one? Sorry, mate.
No, just tell us a bit about. So what does that look like now? What you know, the visually impaired stuff, the drug rehabilitation stuff, the coaching that you're doing now. Just tell us a bit about that. The youth homelessness stuff.
Yeah, well, so I do. There's not much I'm not involved in the London Borough Merton at the moment. I'm actually involved in that many different things that I ended up becoming on board as an advisor, sport advisor, to create opportunities for people, as London Borough Merton is going to become the Borough of Sport and known as the Borough of Sport. We've got so much sport happening around here, and I've always been involved in sport. So I started with a visually impaired kickboxing. That was I was at a meeting with some council officials, and somebody mentioned it, said, can we have visually impaired kickboxing? And I thought, yeah, I can make that work. So I created that, first in the UK to be doing that. We do a lot now.
You got kicked a lot in that, Dean, right?
I did get kicked a lot, yes. I still do get kicked a lot. Yeah, but I have to be careful when I'm holding the pads because of I had my operation last year, so I am recovering pretty well, but I still like to keep active, but I'm not as active as I was. That's where we always laugh at it. Used to be good. Now it's just it. So, but I also partnership with Cedars, which is a community drug and alcohol recovery services in Merton and Wandsworth. And we do non-contact fitness boxing sessions and just to promote well-being and good for mental health, which is actually now to the stage where we're doing that at Roehampton University in London once a week as well as doing that at Tooting and Mitcham. Yeah, it's just creating opportunities for people. We're trying to get more youth football happening. I do voluntary roles with youth football. I do with Old Ruts, one of the local clubs around here. I'm involved with their youth setup. Morden Little League. It's the oldest little league in the country. I've got a little.
Just talk to us about. Sorry to cut across. Just talk to us about Morden Little League, because I find that whole thing incredibly special. I've been there a couple of times. I've heard about it. Just tell the listeners a bit about their approach.
Morden Little League. So around the UK, there's loads and loads of little leagues, football little leagues on a Saturday morning. Now, The first ever one was in Morden, in South London, Surrey. Well, it's Surrey, South London. It's changed over the years, but it's been there for years. I think when he come back, is it Frank? Come back from watching a baseball, and he created the Little League, and it's the biggest free football. Like Morden Little League is still free. It runs on like donations. There's over 1,000 young people on a Saturday morning. You would not believe playing football for free. So that's all volunteer led. You have to have parents
the
there.
parent does the parent basically comes to an agreement, don't they? Or the parent or the carer, where they've got to do some volunteering a set number of times a year.
Everybody does.
They've got to work in the cafe.
Yes.
They survive on basically selling bacon rolls, a little raffle, volunteer time, and just being really, really smart and getting, it's not the highest. It's not meant to be about elite sport. It's meant to be about inclusive sport.
No.
But it's a shining light, I think.
Yeah. Well, my team last year, mine and my friend's team, we ended up winning the Fair Play Award last year because, like you say, it's not about elite level sport at this one. It's out of 72 teams, we got the Fair Play Award because we made sure every child were playing, no matter their ability. Now, we're not going to win the leagues doing that, but we're making sure everyone's playing football and having fun. And that's what the smiles on the faces, But then we step into Sunday, and then in the Surrey Youth League, we've got more competitive football. So let's have fun football and competitive football as well. Let's try and, give those opportunities. Like the parents that come down and help running the line, tidying everything away, setting up, the respect barriers, all that every week, in the rain and the. I mean, I've sent you vids before, Zaf, about how crazy, and you've been there, you've seen it. I've seen you there helping out and stood doing stuff chucking it down with rain. There's a good setup there. And the thing with that is, it's the original one, and they have to work hard because I know they never want to make it, so you have to pay.
No, and tell us about the. So they're brilliant. Just love them. Tell us about the youth homelessness stuff.
So that's Street Soccer Foundation. So I work part-time for AFC Wimbledon Foundation, and that come about from another project I was doing. But because I do that many different voluntary roles, I wanted to be involved with the club as well, and we do the Street Soccer Foundation program, which is tackling homelessness, just at risk and vulnerable. It's evolved so much, the Street Soccer Foundation program, that was in partnership with AFC Wimbledon Foundation, that we're helping so many young people now, 18 to 30s. And I think they're just dropping the age down to 17 now, I think, so we can get more 17-year-olds. Because you got that little age group where it's not quite 18, not 16, it's like they're in limbo. So I think we're opening it up to 17-year-olds and above now. But we do like football programs, workshops, give them life skills. I've got a couple of guys from that which are now going to go on to be involved in football. Now, they're not going to be players. They're definitely not going to be in the Premier League. Hardly anyone makes it in football, without killing everyone off. Like one of my friends keeps saying, JJ, well, JJ, it's like less than 1%, they're not going to get into football that way, playing, or everyone, but let's get them involved in football, coaching. There's volunteer roles, but then there's also paid roles behind the scenes, and to take them, giving them direction where they could have gone off the rails, a bit like myself. We share life experiences, and there's not just me. I've got a story, but a lot of these youths and people I'm working with, they've all got stories. Mine's no different well, it is slightly different, but we've all got our own stories and our own personal journeys. And if we can collaborate and help people that's at risk of homelessness, they've got no work. It's just, they feel like the only place for them is maybe drugs and stuff. Like when I had my problems over 20 years ago, there was no one I could really talk to. or I felt was on the same wavelength, you know. And me having that experience, it helps me develop, and hopefully I'm shining a light and working with the others, which is then now I've got a couple of guys that are just, they're doing great. They're going on to paid roles within AFC Wimbledon. There's volunteer roles, opportunities for other people. It's not just about, you know, yourself around sport and football. It's football in general. It's not just the football. It's everything else that happens. And Zav, I mean, you walked to 92 grounds. Everyone says 92 grounds. I know there were miles more than 92 grounds. Yeah, you know, everything, the football is just 3 o'clock, you know, everything else, the communities and what people do behind the scenes, you know, the unsung heroes, there's so many of them. And I love being involved and helping create a change and giving that direction. And, you know, yeah, people are going to slip up. You know, I've had some people I've worked with and they've slipped up a little bit, but that doesn't mean that I turn my back on them or we turn us back on them. We got to like, listen, it's just a blip, a little glitch in the matrix, as we'll say. But come on, working together, we can get you back onto the right track.
This is what I love about it, because, like, you know, as you say, 20 years ago, this stuff didn't really exist. Foundations, football foundations, sport for good charities, it's all quite new, right? And to think that, you know, people are using boxing, they're using football, they're using rugby, cricket, to actually do this good stuff. That's why this podcast here, right? And it's something that Aaron and I and others will drive forward. We just want everyone to understand what is going on out there, because it's phenomenal. It's really good hearing your story, and it's really good that, yeah, I really like your point about others having their own versions of the story. But to see, you know, Street Soccer Foundation and AFC Wimbledon Foundation is, you know, that partnership is relatively new. So to hear now that, you know, that there's people already coming out of the other side of that have had some support, that are now looking at their own futures, it's really cool. And none of it would have happened if we, you know, if there hadn't been the ground in the first place. And when we were raising money for that ground, we said it's not about 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It's about being a force for good in the middle of the community. And
so much happening.
You guys are living and breathing that, right?
Yeah, it's like it does do my missus' head in, to be honest with you. You know, my missus, bless her, Claire, she works her socks off. She works at St. George's Hospital, which you know, and she works hard, you know, and she funny shifts, night shifts and stuff. But when she's not at work, I'm either at Plough Lane at Wimbledon or I'm at Tooting and Mitcham, which is the other football club, the non-league football club beside there, because that's where the actual kickboxing club is in there. So my days, I'm either at Tooting and Mitcham or at AFC Wimbledon, Plough Lane. It's back and forth, and my missus is like, you need to, you know, you're around it all the time. It's like, what you're doing, there's no game on it. And this is the funny thing about it as well, Zav, and Aaron, is where do I go on my days off then? I'm obviously at one of the stadiums watching sport as well. So if I'm not working and doing stuff there, I'm going on my days off to watch the sport there. So it's just, the community, like I said, around Merton, it's not just in London, everywhere. The football clubs, all the sports clubs, not just football, the sports clubs are the community. You know, whether it's a rugby club, you know, tennis clubs, you know, squash club, you know, there's so much powerful things that can come from sport. And it needs, like you say, you've done a great job walking everywhere and shining the light on the work. But you've not even scratched the surface. That's the thing as well. We've had this conversation, Zav. You've not even scratched the surface, and there's so much more of what people are doing, and sharing knowledge with each other can only make things grow. You know, I was at a council meeting a few years ago, and I'd said, look, why aren't we hitting the violence reduction units? You know, that way we can keep people out of prison or get them active with stuff. And now we ended up having that program with AFC Wimbledon Foundation, the Met Police, and my company, where we had workshops and sports to get people out of trouble, you know, and that went on and it's still going on. And we there's so much happening, you know. A lot of it's boredom for kids, younger people, you know, and even older. older adults. You know, if we can get them involved in sport, whether it's officiating or just helping out, you know, the power of it all is just immense.
Absolutely. What a way to bring it round as well. The power of sport is immense. Dean, what an insightful story, and what a journey, mate. Keep on doing what you're doing. Can't wait to see you down the lane as well.
Thank you, mate.
Brilliant. Cheers,
Thank
Dean.
you for joining
Thanks
us,
very
mate.
much.
Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me on.